Today is the 15th of Tevet, and it was a full moon last night. It was very big, very beautiful. I don't know if so. Now, last time we finished
Muslim.
the was it the Muslim? Oh yeah, you're right. I went back and I looked at the Christian again, so I'm still thinking of the Christian. Thank you. It was actually, yeah, you're right. We finished the Muslim last time, and this is correct. Yes, what he was, the Kuzari's rejection of the Muslim was that
It's in Arabic.
it's in Arabic, so the proof means nothing to me. And if I speak other languages, it's all subjective. I might think something else is more poetic, more beautiful than the Arabic. The other thing he says is that you're not really providing any miracles. It's just another hearsay. Here we go. We're all up and running. And the Muslim says, "Oh, but if you want miracles, I can tell you all about miracles. The miracles, they all occur they're all in the Hebrew Bible, and we accept that. Since we accept that, it's part of our tradition as well. So much to the Kuzari's chagrin, or like to his dismay, because before he wrote off the Jewish people, he's going to go talk to a Jewish person now and have a conversation with them about their miracles and so forth. Are there any questions or thoughts or anything we should consider before we move on to the Jewish section?
I'm just wondering why a religion should be based on miracles.
I don't think it's about basing it on miracles, but the miracle is a proof. In Hebrew we call them oath. It's an oath. It's a sign. Or another thing we call it is a degel or a nes. It's something that shows God's influence, God's stamp of approval. We're just leaving Hanukkah, so I think I can say one more Hanukkah related thing. If you look in the book of Maccabees, which isn't a canonical book, we don't accept the book of Maccabees as scripture, and there's no mention of the oil, of the miracle of the oil. That's a much later emphasis is put on the miracle of the oil. And there's a whole reason and everything of why the emphasis of the oil comes later. It's not to say that the emphasis of the oil miracle didn't happen, but there were many, many miracles that were happening, and this is just one of them, the oil miracle. But the way the rabbis understand the miracle of the oil is a stamp of approval. It's a sign from God that everything is going the way it should be going. And one of the reasons they would have a question is because the Hashmonaim, they're priests. And priests are not allowed to be kings. You can't be a king and be a priest at the same time. We have separation of powers. So the fact that they got an approval from God with the miracle of the oil, it shows that, okay, like for now it's okay. It ended up being not okay because they became very corrupt, and they corrupted not only the kingship, but they corrupted the priesthood as well. So it's just because you get a stamp of approval from God doesn't necessarily mean that you have a right to do whatever you want. And that's the difference between a Jewish understanding of a miracle and a non-Jewish understanding of a miracle. If I could paint with a very broad brush, of course. A miracle in Christianity or Islam could be seen as a stamp of approval to do whatever I want. But the miracle in Judaism is only a stamp of approval for the moment right now, that this step right here, that's good. So this is what the Kuzari is looking for. He's looking for some sort of stamp of approval of actions, because he knows that his beliefs are, his fervor, that's in his heart's in the right place, but he's looking for a stamp of approval of actions. And if there aren't any stamps of approval of the actions in Islam or in Christianity, he's forced to look at Judaism. So that's what he's looking for. Yoram, I see you have a question or a statement?
Yeah, it's both. Like some religions, like the Hinduism, believe in the God within you. Some people in the Jewish tradition believe that nature is the best proof of a creation in God. But for whatever reason, and that's the question, the Sinai experience had multiple miracles outside nature, from the Red Sea to even Mount Sinai itself. So there was a reason why God and Moses went that route rather than everybody would do it in the brain and heart. They needed that experience. Everybody among the Israelites saw and heard. And that was part of the grand design of the Jewish belief.
Very good point. And if I understand you correctly, that's exactly what we're going to be getting into when we discuss the Hahama from Israel explains or helps the Kuzari understand Judaism. Okay. So let's get started here with our first paragraph. Let me share our screen. Adobe Acrobat. Share. Yalla. Okay, great. Everyone can see okay? Let me make everybody visible to myself. Okay. I believe we are in paragraph 10. Yes. And the miracles that the Muslim describes, the Muslim scholar describes, are miracles that have to do with history. In other words, there's something that everybody agrees on, not whether or not someone got healed by a private story where one person got healed or something. Or no, these are national miracles that everybody was aware of and saw, and that even in other histories and other places people mention these miracles, such as like the Great Flood is mentioned, and every nation on the world, every people, culture has some sort of primordial flood story, which kind of points to a shared connection in humanity to this event. Whether it's how it happened, what the details of it are, people have different legends around that. But here, everyone agrees that this thing occurred for them. So, other miracles like that. So, just to recap, I think we read this part last time, but said the Kuzari that if the miracles if the miracles experienced by the children of Israel are the entire proof to any believer in the Bible that there is a God in the world, then I see that I have to ask the Jews, for they are the descendants of the biblical children of Israel. And does he use that language in the Hebrew? Yeah, more or less. Yeah. This might not be everybody knows this, but we might call ourselves Yehudim or Jews, but not everybody in Am Yisrael is Jewish. For example, Kohanim technically aren't Jewish. Kohanim are from the tribe of Levi. They're Levites. Judaism, Jewish, just means from the tribe of Yehuda. Now, to be fair, that's just the general term we use for our Da'at Torah, for our culture, for everything we are. But technically speaking, the Yehudim are one of the remaining tribes of the original children of Israel. So that's what his little shift in language there. It's very subtle, and it doesn't mean anything. It's just a historical point. Also could mean that like Bnei Israel could refer to the original kingdom, the empire that we had under the Davidic and Solomonic rules. But here, it's just this small, wretched people now, the Yehudim, who are very lost and scattered throughout the world. So the Yehudim were the leftovers, basically. All right. So he summoned a Jewish sage, someone he calls me Chachamei Yehudim, and he asks him about his imunato, his faith. Now, I think I wanted to point this out before, that when he asks about Islam and Christianity, he asks about their ma'asim, right? He asks about what their actions are. Because he already knows that they have a proper belief because everybody believes in it. It's the rule of truism. But it's almost like he has to start over again. He has to see what they believe and then judge them off of that and see if their actions add up. So he asks him, and I want to point this out. I think we touched on this when we first started, but I want to reiterate this again and underscore this again. Here in the English, it says, the rabbi said to him, right? However, in the Hebrew, we have, Amar lo Habher. What is Habher in Hebrew? What do we mean by Habher? Is that rabbi? No, right? What does Habher mean?
A friend, a
Friend,
close friend.
friend.
Yeah, close friend.
The friend.
Yeah, exactly. Very good. when you say Yeshli Havera or Leshe Haver, in modern Hebrew, it can mean that it's my boyfriend, my girlfriend, but it means like someone when you have a Habura, it's a group of friendship. When you have a Havruta, it's somebody you learn personally with. This is your friend that you learn with. So here, the rabbi is a Haver. And we've touched on this a little bit at the beginning that the Haver is something different than the rabbi. It's someone who's close, but there's something else to it. There's another level of cultural sensitivity that is a little bit lost today, and it's apparent in the Judeo-Arabic of Yehuda. Like the Haver is a learned, very well learned businessman. He's not clergy. He's not a priest. He's not a minister. He's not a sheikh or an imam. He is somebody who is a person who is involved in work in the world. He has a 9-to-5 job, or whatever the job criteria was back in medieval Spain. He is not separated from the people of his community. In other words, he's not in some ivory tower, a scholar up in his ivory tower. He's somebody who is close to the people, understands what's going on in everyday life, and also is learned in his law, in his religion, in his Torah. There is another term for this that Rabbi Mark Angel writes about in some of his articles, and I'll see if I can find the article and maybe post it on the website when I throw this all up, is the Haver Ha'ir, the friend of the city, is one of the titles that a Talmid Chacham is called, Haver Ha'ir. And it's because they're involved in the businesses of the community. They're not shut away. Today, you might ask a rabbi a question, and they'll have no idea what's going on in the general community. They'll have no idea from any of the culture of the community that they're involved with. The Haver is very much steeped in this culture. And this is what the Yehuda HaLevi is engaging in. He's engaging not only with Jewish people, he's engaging with Muslims, he's engaging with Christians. That was the culture of Al-Andalus. In the Convivencia, people lived together, worked together, and they had to understand the other. So here, the Haver is somebody, and I think Yoram wrote this in the chat, is able to connect. He's able to connect with people, not only based off of Torah or whatever religious topics, but off of cultural topics, off of business topics, what the popular culture of the people around him are. He understands people, in other words. Any questions on that, comments? Okay. Eleanor, please.
Wouldn't you say that there's a difference between different rabbis, even today, in their involvement with the community versus in their own little world, studying all day long and not having anything very much to do with the community?
100%, and it's a shame. It's a shame because it's taken. Another thing about rabbis, and I'm not here to bash on rabbis. Obviously, I love rabbis. Some of my best friends are rabbis. But the rabbinic world is not. It's not a cognate to any other. The rabbinic world isn't a man of the cloth. You know, they say that someone's a man of the cloth. They dedicate their life to the monastery or learning. Everyone has access to learning. The rabbi, his or her role, is to be well versed in halachic literature and to be able to help teach the community. It used to be that the community didn't pay the rabbi would pay the community. Of course, if you were the hacham, the chief rabbi or whatever, and you ran a community, the community would help you out in certain circles. You get housing or things like that, but you couldn't make a good salary off of it. You still had to work, even as a talmid chacham, not even as a haver, you still had to work. Today, when you have these Rosh Yeshiva rabbis who don't work in the community, don't understand popular culture, don't know what the struggle of quote unquote normal Jews are, and then they make sak halacha based off of some abstract, idealistic religious society, it loses touch with the people. And this is why you have in Orthodoxy the problem of an going to the right ideology of, and it's not about always strictness, it's just about idealizing what society could be rather than what society is. So the Chacham is supposed to engage in what the society is. There's a quote I think it's from Chacham Sefer Or, and I could be mistaken. I could be quoting somebody else. But the idea is to be modern is to be Jewish, and to be Jewish is to be modern. Meaning that when you are fully engaged as a Jew, you should be fully engaged in your society. And when you're fully engaged in society, it also helps you fully engage better in your Judaism. They're kind of like a yin and a yang, if I can use that comparison or that phraseology. They strengthen each other. So a good Jew isn't someone who's totally divorced from his society. He's someone who is engaged. Any other comments, questions? Okay. So I will probably, if I'm reading the English, I might say the rabbi said, but we should also know that when I'm saying the rabbi said, we're meaning the Habher, the person, this businessman who is very well versed in Torah. So Amar lo Habher. So he starts off. I will just read it in English. We believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov, who took the Jews out of Egypt with great wonders and miracles, who sustained them in the desert, and gave them the land of Canaan as their inheritance, after he split both the Red Sea and the Jordan River with great miracles. What is the difference between the Habher's answer compared to, say, the Muslim or the Christians? It's subtle. I think it's subtle. It could be very apparent, though. And I'm just double checking. Okay. So, in the Christian's answer and in the Muslim's answer, they both answer. The Christian first answers, I believe the universe was created and that the blessed God preceded all. He created the world in 6 days, all human beings, etc., from Adam and Noah, etc., etc. The Muslim also says, we uphold the beliefs in the unity and eternity of God, that the world is God's creation, and that all men are descended from the first man, Adam, etc., etc., etc. Here the Jewish person comes and says, we believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov, who took us out of Egypt. Irene, I see you have a question, or you have an answer, or you have a comment. Go ahead. You're on mute. Irene.
Got it. Thank you. He's talking about a miracle, so he's talking about action, and he's talking about a more personal God rather than one who just creates the world. He's talking about what God did for the Jewish people,
Yes.
which is to take them out of the land of Egypt and giving them the land of Canaan.
Yes.
So it's a more personal, it's a miracle, and it's one from memory, but it's one that's specific to the Jewish people.
Yes, very good. Exactly that. Not only does he mention 2 miracles, very public miracles, actually 3 public miracles in his answer of what he believes, he also makes it about a personal covenant that his people has with this God, and that it's localized to his experience, the nation's experience with this God. So it differs from the philosopher who said God created everything, but he's distant and he doesn't interact with us. And it's more specific than the Christian and the Muslim, who say, yes, God created the universe and that's why he's our God. But he's saying, yes, God created the universe, that's all good. But God is our God, meaning we have a relationship with him based off of this covenantal experience that he had with our ancestors. And that's where he's starting off. That's where his basis is starting off. And of course, he has these great miracles that people can look at and point to. Like we said, miracles are something that point to God. And if we remember back in another class I'm giving, we talk about what is a mitsuyan, what is a tzion. Tzion is something that points to something else. And so this idea of miracle, it's not a basis for the religion. It's only a little pointer to the creator and has his role in the world. Yoram, go ahead.
What is interesting that all those religions would be different than what we call modern science, that a man is a mutation from a monkey and God knows what. They all say egg The world was created in 6 days, not billion years, and that man was handmade by God, not as a mutation from an inferior animal. So it's very interesting. When today half the world probably believes that a man came out of whatever other animals.
Interesting, yeah. And maybe we're saying here that what predicates our relationship, what predicates our belief, our imunah, our faithfulness to God, isn't the creation of the world, but His salvation of us, if that's a redemption of us from Egypt. It's a tangible, realistic. It's not abstract. It's here in the world. Let's move on, unless there are any questions, comments. Okay. So he continues. And this is going to give another layer of relationship and depth to our relationship with God. This God sent Moshe to give his Torah, and later he sent thousands of prophets throughout history who exhorted the populace to follow the Torah and who taught about the great reward for those who observe it and the heavy punishment for those who violate it. So here, another point that differs from the philosopher specifically, is that there's a system of law that was given to us by this God, and then to reinforce it, there are prophets, and that means that these prophets were able to follow this law and become prophets and have that same relationship that would allow for communication back and forth. And the prophets are only exhorting punishment for it and reward for it, meaning they're not adding anything new or they're not subtracting anything for it. They're only there to remind, to be reminders of the covenant over and over again. And this differs from Islam, where if you rejected Muhammad, you are eternally damned. But here, there's no damnation for anyone outside of this covenant. And I'm not trying to insinuate that there's damnation for those inside the covenant. But you cannot blame the rest of the world for not being Jewish. The Torah is only applicable to Jewish people. In other words, not that it's closed and that you can't become Jewish or anything like that, but that you can't go to Papua New Guinea and say, you haven't been following the Torah, you're going to go to hell forever. No, that's not the game. That's not the aim of the creator here. The connection here is very personal. Personal is the right word. Very specific, I think, is the word I want to use. And then he finishes. We believe in everything written in the Torah, which contains a massive amount of information. He's saying that all of it is true. That we have and really, what I would say is, rather than that, the Devarim Arukim. Devarim Harukim means it covers a wide base, I would say, rather than it has a massive amount of information. It's an interesting way of translating it, but really, it touches on all areas of our life. That it's a comprehensive book. Okay. Any comments, questions before we move on to the Kuzari's response? Tov. Okay. Said the Kuzari, I was correct in my original resolve not to query a Jew, because I knew that the Jews have lost their connection to their past and have no depth of wisdom. This is no doubt a result of their history of destitution and misery, which has left them without any positive characteristics. So far, pretty standard response to anything Jewish in the Western world. You, Jew, which is, it's very derogatory the way he's using it, it seems like. You, Jew, should have said that you believe in a creator who organizes and oversees the universe and who created you and sustains you, and other such ideas which are universal to all religions. So here, the Kuzari, right off the bat, is taking him to task on his comment on we're the descendants of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, and we believe in that God who took us out of Egypt. He says, what a foolish way to answer. Everyone I've talked to so far, they start off like, who is this creator? Who is this God? What has he done? What's the basis of his creation? And I was right not to ask you because you are very foolish. You tell me about this exodus from Egypt. It's ridiculous what you're trying to sell to me. Those ideas, meaning the ideas of the unit that are universal to all religions, the creation, etc.
Want to scroll?
Oh yeah, sorry. Those ideas that are real, those ideas are the real reasons to pursue truth and emulate the Creator's righteousness and wisdom, and not the specific miracles you mentioned that happened during isolated periods. It seems that the brackets are not in the original text, but I think he's trying to spell out what his implication is. There's a footnote here, footnote number 34. We'll check it out. The Kuzari feels that creation and other universal acts of God are the most compelling reasons for a non-Jew to accept the Jewish God, or it seems God in general. These are where God displayed his compassion and goodness to all mankind. The specific historical events and miracles that occurred to the Jewish people do not contribute to an understanding of God's nature. Instead, they only explain why Jews have particular observances that are linked to those events. It seems to me that if that's the case, if that's what I don't know if that's what the Kuzari is thinking. It seems like he's explaining it narrowly. It seemed like he's answering what the Kuzari is looking for. The Kuzari knows that God exists because he's spoken with him, or he had an angelic encounter. But here he's having trouble, or he's calling, not trouble, but he's calling the Jewish person foolish because he doesn't start off on universal basis. Does anyone have a problem with that? Anyone see any issue with that?
That seems to be what he's talking about. He's saying it's the specific as opposed to the universal.
Yeah, it's for me. I don't know. Maybe I'm approaching it from a different place. It just seems that he's being nitpicky. It's not that he's trying to buy the concept of God. He already believes in the concept of God. So here, if he's looking for ma'asim, deeds, he's found them. Because here you have a people who have ma'asim, deeds, have a law, and they already take for granted the creation, everything. That I don't know. I'm just seeing that like it could be. I mean, of course, this isn't the actual account. This is Yehuda Halevi's depiction. So of course, there's probably a little dramatic effect here.
And also, it begins with him putting down the Jew.
Yeah.
I did not intend to ask because I'm aware of the reduced condition and narrow-minded views. That's the translation I got.
That's
So
good.
he's beginning by saying, you don't really know what you're talking about to begin with.
You know, and it could also be that there's a perception of Jewish people, and it's probably a perception that has followed us everywhere, is that we're too particular. We're only focused in on what is affecting. What is the joke? Yeah, he's a monster, but is he good for the Jews? Like, there's that ideology. There's some truth to it. And when I say there's some truth to it, meaning that we have our national interests. We have what affects us and how we should have a broad mind of how things should affect other people. Other people shouldn't suffer if just because we're going to be okay with it. No. But this could be the mindset of people around in Andalus. People always could see us as some sort of mistrusted minority that are always looking out for ourselves. So here he's putting that into the mindset already here. That yeah, it seems that because of our belief that we're chosen people, that we have some sort of narrow-mindedness about who we are, and some self-elevation that isn't warranted or isn't granted. Irene, did you have a question or a comment?
Yes, the title of this book is We're the Despised People.
Is the what?
That we are the despised people.
Yeah, the
Despised religion.
yeah, the English translates it that way. The way I understand the original title, it's called Kitab al-Rad Hadalil Hadalal. It's more of like a defense of law. That is a law, but we also use law, the word dat, to connote religion in the modern sense. And the thing is that Judaism doesn't really have a word for religion. When someone says they're dati, or like if they say dati leumi dati leumi in Israel, that they're national religious or something like that, it's for all intents and purposes in the modern parlance, yeah, it means that they're religious, they're a religious person, and it can be equated with us as a people. But here, it's not. It has a double entendre. So yes, the Jewish people are disliked and hated, and he mentions that several times already. I'm not going to bother with the Jews because they don't have the truth, because nobody likes them. But here it also is a defense of the concept of law in general, I think. So yeah, the title does point to that here we can see that we're already hated. But it's going to be Yehuda Halevi's defense of law, of a legal approach. And it sounds harsh on Western ears, I think, because I think Western mind is kind of taught to distrust law and legalism, and there's all kinds of terms that Christians have for Christians who act like Jewish people. And they call it Judaizing, they call it legalists, they call it legalism, and there is people can be too punctilious, but the law is very, very important in our mindset, I think. So Yehuda Halevi's defense is also of the despised law, meaning the despised faith, dat meaning the despised Torah. And Torah in a general sense, not particularly our Torah. But good point. Thank you for putting that out. Any other comments, questions? So, okay. So yes, the Kuzari is not happy with his response, with the rabbi, with the Habher's answer. So the Habher is going to respond to him. What you are referring to is religion arrived at through logic and analysis. And if you notice, that was one of the last things the Muslims said. You don't need miracles because this is a logical religion. You could arrive to these conclusions through your own intellectual analysis. And that was one of the things also with the philosopher. If you analyze the universe, you can kind of figure out and become one with the divine intellect. And the other thing that the Kuzari had a problem with the Christian was that logic seemed to be stretched. So here the Kuzari is in search of a logical response, something logically soothing to him. And logically soothing would start with a point of creation. That's what's going to be soothing to Kuzari. So the Habher responds, you want something that's going to be arrived through a logic and analysis. And he continues, but because it is reached through these means, and I'm not sure what he means. I'm not sure if he's pointing towards
Logic and analysis.
Yeah, that's what he must mean. It is subject to much ambiguity. This is why when you ask philosophers their opinion about religion, you find that they are unable to agree on one proper mode of conduct or on one philosophy, which makes sense. So one person could meditate on a religious ideal, and they could come to a different conclusion. The same person who's a different person who's meditating on the same concept, and that was the philosopher's answer. The philosopher said, "It doesn't matter what your actions are. You can even make up your own actions, make up your own religion." And your own religion can satisfy you as long as it's intellectually sound. And the note here, it's a very short note, note 35. He's basically pointing out one philosopher could think that kindness is the best. Another philosopher could think asceticism is the best. Another philosopher could think this virtue is the best. And it's all through their subjective conclusion. Now, this is I'll continue here. This is because philosophers base their religion on logical arguments, some of which are based on absolute fact, and others that are not proven but seem reasonable, and others that are not even intellectually satisfying, let alone based on fact. I, on the other hand, speak of tangible events as the basis for our religion. So the Habher's response is, anybody in the world can base their religion off of the creation of the universe, something none of us were present for, and make it the entire basis of the religion. And we can say that the universe is created, and that is our proof that God exists. Or you could say the universe is eternal, it's always existed, and that's what we're basing our entire religion off of. And you could never prove or disprove those, because you're not going to find tangible evidence. Now, today, scientists are able to examine the Big Bang and present us with theories of evolution, and present us with theories of cosmic development. And none of that should either prove or disprove our Torah, because our Torah isn't based off of, though our religious basis isn't based off of that. Our religious basis is based off of our national redemption, a story we all took part in and shared in. As we say in the Haggadah, we should see ourselves as if we are personally leaving Egypt. And it's more than just a state of mind. It's trying to say that this is the origin of where we're getting everything from, what we're basing everything off of, excuse me. Yoram, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree and somewhat disagree, because our fundamental, we all believe in creation, but we also all believe that our Torah is not written by Haverim or rabbis. The core belief that we got it from Moses via God. Anyway, it's divine. And even if we don't understand why we shouldn't eat shrimps, there is no logic to it except in this chapter and this verse. And if you disagree that that's godly, then if you enjoy eating shrimps and you're not doing it because of group pressure, like in the little village, because you'll be kicked out of the community, to me, a core belief that the Torah is divine, not man-made.
That's what he says. That's what the Habher says.
So it's not based on logic. There is no logic to prove that the Torah is divine.
That's what he said. Exactly that. It's not based on logic. It's based off of revelation. Norm, go ahead.
Can you
But
hear me now?
unmute yourself.
There you go. You're unmuted. Go ahead.
Well, isn't it true that Jewish religion believes that we have a God that's reaching out to have a relationship with its creation?
Yeah.
And we get a gift of the Torah,
Mhm.
so that we are able to do that, to speak a language that will allow us to have a personal relationship with the God.
Mhm.
It's more than logic.
Absolutely.
It's faith and understanding.
Absolutely. And it's not the development of a logical conclusion. The religion wasn't started because Moses was sitting on Mount Sinai meditating and then said, I've had this idea, this thought, and I'm going to now teach this thought to other people. It's that we had a connection, a face-to-face connection, and saw God intervene in our life, in our national life, and remove us from a negative situation, saved us as a people. Why that happened, that's a different question. But it's exactly that. It's that personal relationship of God reaching out, of this impossible, infinite thing reaching out to us in a very personal, concrete way. So this is what the Habher is saying to the Kuzari's response. You want something logical? You're not going to find something. I wasn't continuing. I was just summarizing. You want something logical. But I will scroll down because we'll continue. You want something logical. I'm not going to be able to provide that to you because this is something that is. It's not that it's illogical, and it doesn't mean reasonable. Because Judaism is not logical doesn't mean that it's unreasonable or irrational. There's going to be something beyond rationality, beyond logic involved here, and it's not that it's a jump or a leap or anything like that. We're going to get into all that, but here he's pointing simply to this king, this political leader, that there's a historical reason for it. And it has nothing to do with our logical conclusions. And our logical conclusions, we can all have our logical conclusions about God. We should have, as the Rambam says, we should have ta'ameh mitzvot. We should develop our own ta'am for what the mitzvah means. It doesn't mean we make up a reason, but it means that when we investigate the Torah, when we learn the Torah, we're not simply reading it passively. We're engaging in it actively. And we come up with our own ta'am. And as Yoram's probably mentioned before, ta'am doesn't just mean reason, it means taste, it means flavor. Our flavor are reasons for the mitzvot. And a person should accept, and this is the difference, it could be what's it called? Nuance, there's a nuance to it. A person should accept that the reason I don't eat shrimp is because of the law of the Torah. But then they can develop other reasons of what is the deal with shrimp. And understand that it could be health, or it could be tuma, it could be this, and it could be that. But that's not the reason it was given. But they should develop reasons for it. I hope that makes sense. Does that make sense, or is that too convoluted? I know that we'll get into it soon in any event. Okay, so we are paragraph 14.
14.
Let's see here, 950. Okay, we'll go a few more paragraphs because I think maybe the reason that these paragraphs are so, as you can see, it's 14, 15, 16, 17. They're so small is maybe because they're so packed, and it would be a shame to just race through a paragraph. I mean, not every paragraph is going to be something we're going to deconstruct. I mean, like this one, for example, that one's pretty straightforward. But but we will take an example. We'll just go through them and see if there's any place that we should stop and think about more, because we only have about 5 or so more minutes. So, okay. The Kuzari said, "Your words make more sense now than when you began speaking. I would like to continue this conversation." That's now something pretty impressive from the Kuzari. If it's coming from the Kuzari, it means a lot, because so far, when he was presented with something he didn't like it, and he would move on. He heard what the Habher had to say, that logic isn't going to be I'm not presenting you something logical, I'm presenting you my personal national experience. I accept that. So the Habher then continues. Don't think so, he says. I'll say it first. Amar Habher, the rabbi said, on the contrary, my opening words are the greatest proof of the truth of my religion. And moreover, they require no additional demonstrable proofs. So, on the one hand, the Kuzari is saying, you said something, I didn't like it, I rebutted you, then you came back and then you gave a different explanation, and that explanation was better. The Habher says, no. The explanation I gave to begin with, that is all I need to give. There's nothing else to demonstrate. I just explained why you should accept that, or why you should acknowledge that is an emet, a truth. And it has nothing to do with his oratorial skills, I don't think. He's just trying to demonstrate to him that the greatest proof here is this historical proof that was given to him. The Kuzari then asks, how can this be so? The rabbi answered, if you give me permission to preface my words, excuse me, I will gladly explain. I think these introductory remarks are necessary since my words seem a burden to you and are being easily dismissed. So here he's engaging in a little bit of a rhetorical back and forth with him in the style of the philosophers. Up until this point, the Habher, the Haham, Judaism in general has been dismissed for several reasons. One reason is that the Jews are so hated as a group, and since they're so hated as a group, there's nothing to be involved. There's no reason to get involved with this hated minority. The second reason is that they are a minority, and if the truth only lies with the masses, then the truth does not lie with Judaism. The truth has to be something that everybody agrees and accepts. And this is something that we've mentioned before of truism. And there's a great quote from Harambam, and I'll try to find it where he says it, but the quote is like this: the truth is the truth, not because no matter who believes in it. It doesn't matter if the minority believes in it or the majority believes in it, or it's equal 50-50. The truth is always true. And it doesn't give any credence from popular demand or popular mob rule. So here, in order to kind of undo all of these stereotypes, to break down the barriers between the Habher and the Kuzari, he has to wipe away all of these notions from him. So he's going to give him these introductory remarks.
And this is probably a good place to stop.
I was about to say, this is a good place to stop here, because the introductory remarks are going to be very
Big.
very big, and we should take it very piece by piece. There's a joke. A man goes to a hardware store and he says, I'm going to need some 2x4s. And the clerk says, well, how long are you going to need them? So he responds, for a while, I'm building a house out of them. So we're going to take some time here, especially here, to go over these 2x4s and make sure that we have the right foundation as we approach our Judaism here. Thank you very much. Yoram, I see you have a question.
Well, just a comment, because I was thinking about the Habher versus Rav. We know in Pirkei Avot, you need both a Rav and a Habher. But when I thought about it, Habher is a stronger word in Hebrew. It means to connect. It's mean connected. Rav is somebody you fight with. So actually, I don't know how the word Rav came, but Habher is a much, and when you say Yedid Nefesh, which is even a closer friend, it's even a higher level of somebody connected to your soul, not just your brain.
Thank you very much. Very nice. Irene.
But thank you for the today's lecture, and happy anniversary.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
It's my anniversary, right? My English anniversary? It's either today or tomorrow.
That's what it said in
Oh,
the.
you better know that, Yosef.